Dima has come on, but Gracie, I don't know if you can hear me, or Gracie, I should say. If you can hear me, I can't. I think you're. Oh, it may have come now.
Yeah.
So peace and blessings. Can you see? Yeah, because it was saying that your mic and your camera wasn't working. So, but at least your mic is working. So peace and blessings to both of you, and welcome to the
Okay.
Informal.
All right, thanks.
I've actually got a lot of questions.
All right, we'll ask one, and then I'll give it to Lodima, and then we'll come back to you.
Well, my only question is if all of these languages are related, right? Like all of these African, in my view of what you said, the Nilotic, the Bantu, the Niger languages, I'm just using names that they use, the Afroasiatic, they're all related in some way, right? And in a prehistoric way or whatever. So does it not follow that these groups, rather than them being dismissed, they're just what's the word I'm looking for? They're just a subgroup of a much bigger group, rather than because of course Somali language has its similarities to Oromo, which is a Cushitic language, but in a way that you cannot separate. You cannot truly separate the Afroasiatic languages in grammar, but you can separate that grammar from Bantu languages, meaning these are small groups of a larger group. Even though I disagree with one thing that you said, that Arabic is not related to Bantu. I've seen way too many similarities.
Well, see, we'll have to do a whole show of what it means to be related, and that's the problem. And as I was saying, that what Jean-Claude Mboli is going to have to do, in finding, he's going to have to find some language that is clearly not relatable. And matter of fact, because you really can't say what language is not related. And a matter of fact, I don't know why I didn't add this. I have it in Aluja Volume 2. Because it's about languages not, or being able, it's coming from Hawk in his principles of historical linguistics. So it's showing that you really can't prove that two languages are not related, but more so not relatable. Like there's not a level of consistency between comparative forms that you can argue that these two languages are related. Maybe with more work and more detail down the line, but at this moment, that's just not the case, right?
What about what if you say they're, even if they're related, if there's a relation, they would be way more distantly related. For example, the Bantu language versus Cushitic languages, they're almost opposites, even though they're in the same geographical location.
Indeed, but as Agent Smith on The Matrix wisely said, looks can be deceiving, Mr. Anderson. Right? When you're listening, I'll give two examples. When you're listening to Somali and Kikongo,
yes,
there's no way that you would be like, these two languages are related. It's only when we're able to put them down on paper and to accurately code the phonemes and meanings and put them side by side do you see the relations. Just going off of the hearing, it will disguise the relationship between them. So it's just, but in the opposite, for example, like when you look at the Ottoman Islands in
Mm.
off of the coast of India, right?
Yeah. Mm.
Or the so-called Negritos in Southeast Asia. Like these are folks with very dark skin, curly, so-called nappy hair. You would think that they just hopped off the boat of Africa. But when you look at their genetics, they clearly are not recent migrants from Africa, because all of us, all Homo sapiens, are coming from Africa. So they're African in the sense that all of humanity comes from Africa, but they've been there for like 30,000 years, right? So their connection to Africa is not really meaningful in the sense of outside of their phenotype, that you wouldn't call them Africans per se, in the same way that, because if we look at like pale skin, white hair, and a straight hair and stuff like this, most of this stuff has been dated for like maybe 12,000 years, right? So in many respects, an Indo-European is closer to an African than a person from the Ottoman Islands is to an African, right? And but we wouldn't call Europeans African. Like we're all related on a biological genetic, but there's just certain aspects of our DNA, our phenotypes that represent, historical changes, living in a particular place and it existing there. So and we just have to respect those. All these categories are arbitrary. They're human social constructs, but we're just trying to make sense and categorize being human, and what does that mean to be human in throughout these different time spans in these particular different locations, and what do these interactions mean for these people at these times, right? This is we have to arbitrarily divide each other up like this. But the problem is that there's certain of us in Homo sapiens who think that because they're the presence of certain types of features, whether it be height, skin color, or whatnot, somehow equals an intelligence ability.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where it is gone wrong. Like this is where all the issues come from. Like we can recognize differentiation, but the moment you start saying that, all the people from Brooklyn are dumb, but all the people from the Bronx are highly intelligent folks, right? Like that, like, come on, son. Like it's that kind of thinking causes all of this. So now we trying to look for, because Europeans have created this racial caste system here in the United States, and have highly tried to dehumanize groups that are not them, and try to make them feel inferior in all kinds of ways. We respond, trying to show that, we are intelligent and we created these civilizations and we was here and here and here and here. You're adopting their stupidity. You have two stupid, mindsets trying to compete for supremacy. And it's causing all kinds of confusion. And so there's a way to intelligently have these conversations without delving into pseudoscience. And that's
why
what we're trying to do here in these conversations.
That's why my question, that's why one of my questions in the chat was, if you look at the Indo-European branch, right? We all agree that there's this consistency going through it, right? Do you agree with that? Okay.
Yes.
But if you look at the branches, no matter whose theory you choose, even yours, anybody, there's some various inconsistencies within the languages, which I think something that people are overlooking is that no matter which theory you choose, there are people who had an original language that fused with whatever language, pick Semitic, pick Bantu, pick whatever you want, whatever it is, it fused to a level where you can see remnants of it, but you cannot see the full language in the same way.
This is why in Aluja Volume 2, towards the back of the book, when I'm arguing against Dr. Wesley Muhammad, I gathered some source material to discuss the nature of convergence, right? So what happens is, this is why now I got to go back. Pardon me for a second. We're getting to you, Lodimo. Just bear with me for a second. All right. So this this representation here. Okay, so let me back up. So
yes, sir.
Remember that I said that this is the earliest that we can detect. This is a language full of just simple monosyllabic words that mean body parts, you know, identifies with trees and a lot of onomatopoeia, right? Then it got a little bit more complicated. They started coding a little bit more heavier in terms of the use of the language, and it broke up into 3 different branches, 3 different languages, right? These are languages. So there's branch 1, branch 2, branch 3, and they each have their characteristics. So what ends up happening is these 2 branches start interacting with each other. And so, for example, if you and I are part of one tribe, right? And let's say Brother Zoo in the chat and Lodimo on the panel right now belong to another tribe. And so let's just say that we represent, you know, more than just us 2, but we're the tribe, right? So we go to war with Zoo and Lodimo's tribe, right? But what often happens is that we either kill the men, enslave the other men or young boys, and then we take the women and we marry them amongst each other, right? Now let's assume that Zoo and Lodimo's tribe, they spoke a totally different language.
Yes.
So since we won the war or the series of wars, and we were taking their women, you know, you get the spoils. But if we are, and I'm not condoning any of this, this is history. This is what's been happening around the world, right? So you take women, and then you have children with the women. But who raises the children?
The woman.
The woman. So what language does she speak?
Her own, naturally.
She speaks her own language naturally. So what's going to happen is usually the child or the children, they're going to learn vocabulary from both languages. And her language is going to interfere with her learning the language of the people who kidnapped her, right? And married her off.